Good morning. This is the Innovation Conversation. How you doing, Tom?
Good, Kevin. How are you today?
Good. I can see you're on the road.
I am. I'm on the road. I'm in Chicago.
Yep. Enjoy. God, I miss Chicago. I haven't been to Chicago since before the pandemic. Gotta find a reason.
Really?
I have a son who lives
That's
there. You think I'd
crazy.
find a reason to go?
You would think. You would think. I was actually just here about 4 weeks ago.
Really?
Complete, not. It was a personal, fun trip. Went to a football game in Wisconsin and came down for the weekend. But
Oh,
yeah, we're here.
cool. So I wanted to talk this week a little bit about, and not that we're going to get in the stock picking business, God knows, but to talk a little bit about technology companies, which have
Mhm.
certainly sort of taken it on the chin over the past couple of weeks, for reasons, some of them good, some of them bad, I suppose, or some of them legitimate, some of them not necessarily so, is maybe a better way to put it. Amazon, chief among them. Um, that's a stock that at one point was up around 3,600. Now it's gone through a 20-for-1 stock split, but after the split, it was 180. I think you said before we came on, and now it's at 95 as we record this. So yeah. So the question is, I guess the natural question is, what the hell's going on? And when you look at it, you're going to look at it through different eyes than I'm going to look at it. So is this just lemmings following, whatever, what's going on? And what,
Well, I mean, I think there's.
and the second question, which is more relevant to what we do every couple of weeks,
Mhm.
which is, what does it mean in terms of their ability to invest in innovations? But start with what the hell's going on.
Right. Well, I mean, I think tech stocks are just feeling it probably more acutely than other stocks. But I mean, the whole market, as we see, is very affected by inflationary pressures, rising interest rates. That further strains liquidity. So it just creates this this downward force on the market. And somebody like a Scott Moses or something would be a lot more equipped to talk about the macro trends, but certainly a lot of macro trends pushing against the market and against technology. I mean, Amazon specifically, it's trading, not much better than half of what it was at its recent peak. Within the last year, I think it was up over $180. And it's down below 100 now. I think a number of factors that are impacting Amazon. Of course, the macro environment is affecting Amazon. How the macro environment affects Amazon's consumer and business customers, is a headwind that Amazon's facing. And then Amazon also is becoming more and more more and more challenged with the laws of large numbers, right? I mean, when you're delivering 20+% year-over-year sales growth consistently for as far backward as you can see, then you were kind of juiced by the pandemic, which certainly helped them a lot. And then,
Right.
frankly, coming out of the pandemic, hanging on okay, all things considered. It's going to come and bite you, at some point. Just the general law of large numbers.
Yeah.
That's not the law. Large numbers is not their primary challenge now.
Right.
These conditions are their primary challenge, and they're certainly faced with having to make business adjustments to accommodate for these challenges.
It's funny you say that. It was as I was, I was looking at, I think it was a Business Insider story, and they were talking about how, basically for the fourth quarter, they're predicting anywhere from 2 to 8% growth in sales. And I was thinking to myself, okay, compared to what Amazon traditionally has done, that's not great. On the other hand, most retail businesses pre-pandemic, right, would have been thrilled with a 2 to 8%.
Yeah.
You could say, oh man, we may have an 8% upside in the fourth quarter. Most businesses would have been jazzed by that, which makes me wonder, do we need to rethink how we view Amazon? Is it a mature business at this point? And therefore we're not going to see the kind of growth we've seen in the past, or are we just in a lull? And once we get past the situation in which we all find ourselves now, they're going to get back to generating that kind of growth.
I think there's a little bit of a combination. I mean, they are a large business now. I think when you look at the penetration that they have in retail in general, it stands to reason that their growth would flatten a little. Now, you also spin that back to their day one mentality and the fact that, they're less than 10% of all retail everywhere, and there's still a whole bunch of, opportunity ahead. So, I don't think that dampens their fuel and dampens their energy for innovation and growth and whatnot going forward. So I do think that there's still plenty of opportunity for large growth quarters ahead for Amazon, when the innovation engine's kicking in, when you're seeing new things brought to customers and customers are responding to that. But they're pretty penetrated. If you look at the number of Prime households, right? You look at the number of categories they're in, their position in those categories. There's still a bunch of opportunities there, but they're pretty saturated
Except
in a
in
lot of
food.
those. And again,
Except
for food, yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It's
I
the
mean, I
one.
think that,
I mean, in some ways, this makes them dangerous if they say, "Hey, listen, the only way we're going to drive the kind of growth we used to see is by really going after the food industry, not with a scalpel, but with a bazooka." I'm mixing my metaphor.
well, and it is. I mean, it is still a massive opportunity for Amazon. They have not figured it out. And I think they will admit that they have not figured it out. They make staffing changes, to support the business with some folks from the industry. I think if you look at kind of the near term, I think you can see from the outside looking at them that they are in a process now of evaluating and determining, what is their food format, what is their food value proposition, what are those store formats look like, how do they work, what's the digital physical mix, the delivery in-store mix, merchandising mix, service mix, all that. I think there's a whole bunch of stuff they have to figure out there. So for them, I think in the food biz, it is still day one, even though when I think it is still the very early innings for them. And I do think that there's potential for significant growth there. Not necessarily going to be the most profitable growth, because it is a tough industry to make money in, especially while you're innovating and growing. But I do think that there's a pretty good, there's still pretty good growth potential there. So, again, I think Amazon at 2 to 8%, coming off of, the years that they've had, not so bad, especially in this just really terrible economic environment. I think when you stack up how all the retailers performed post-holiday, I do think Amazon's going to come out pretty well compared to most there, but it's not going to be, it's going to be a tough season.
Well, and the point was made in that Wall Street Journal interview that I posted earlier this week, right? I mean, first of all, you had everybody kind of going along, and then you had the pandemic, which threw everything into high gear, and everybody spent, not everybody, but most companies spent, and innovated really quick because they needed to kind of keep up with demand that was created by the pandemic. And then you're not even out of the pandemic and you get slammed by this headwind called inflation and the likelihood of recession. It does kind of create this sort of whirlpool. I'm really mixing my metaphors today, but this kind of whirlpool effect. And it's hard, like if you're in a boat in a whirlpool, it's hard to make progress, right? All you're trying to do is get out of the whirlpool. And so it just seems to me that it's a really difficult time, and almost nobody should be judged on one's ability to make real progress now. It's mostly to survive it, right? And position yourself going forward. But then my question is, to what degree do the current circumstances reduce Amazon's ability to innovate? I mean, they seem to be making cuts. They're eliminating people. If there are programs or initiatives that are on the bubble, they seem to kind of be, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. On the other hand, they just, God knows what they're spending to get Black Friday football in 2023. So they're clearly willing to continue to spend. So what is it? What kind of impact do you think it's going to have? All this stuff's going to have on their ability to innovate, and by the way, other tech companies as well.
I was going back to your whirlpool example, and how do you get out of a whirlpool? Do you accelerate out of it? You probably do, right? Like if you just sit there, you're going to get sucked in.
Okay, can I tell you?
If you want to get out of it, you probably have to put on the gas.
Can I tell you a story? I mean, it's interesting. I have a friend of mine.
Sure. And then we'll go back to answering that.
We'll go back in it, but it's actually a great metaphor. So a friend of mine was in the Navy. This is now going back 20 or 30 years, and he was on a ship that needed to make its way. It was making its way down, basically through Long Island Sound, and then was going to go down the east side of Manhattan. But there's a point at which the East River meets I think it's the Harlem River meets the Sound, and it's called Hell's Gate, and it's all whirlpools. And one of the things they do, even on big Navy ships, they have somebody who knows that there's a word for it. I can't remember what it is. They have a guy who gets on the ship with you to help you navigate through. Because if you've never done it before, it's really bad. And my friend, and he's on the bridge, right? Because he's like, I don't know, number 2, number 3 on command. He's on the bridge, and they're going, and they come into Hell's Gate, and they're headed towards a wall, right? Which is like on Manhattan. And so the impulse is to turn to a port. They want to make a left. They go to port. And whoever is at the helm says, okay, is it time to go to port? No. Is it time to go to port? No. And they're getting closer and closer to the wall. And everybody on the bridge of this ship is thinking to themselves, frankly, they're thinking this is, oh shit, right?
Well, yeah, exactly.
And they're going towards the wall, and the guy is just very calm. He's looking out, and he's looking out. And they are way closer to the wall than anybody wanted to be. And it's a pretty big ship. And he says, now. And they go to port, and the way they timed it, they hit the whirlpool, and they shot out. I mean, shot out as much as it can.
Yeah.
So it was all about timing, and it was all about understanding. It's such a great metaphor for, right? You can't, old rules don't apply, or obvious rules don't apply.
Yeah.
You got to have somebody at the helm who understands the forces with which you are dealing, and in the case of what you and I are talking about, it's market forces, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which means you have to kind of keep going anyway. So that's
I think that's really good, and I think that is a very appropriate metaphor for where we are now. And I think if you look specifically at Amazon, right, which is the company that just invests a ton of free cash flow in innovation. Now that you're going to be generating less free cash flow, as your forward financials tighten, it does stand to reason that you'd be more measured in your innovation. And I don't, that does mean likely doing less. It means likely tightening your investment theses across the company about where you want to do these experiments. You can't stop. And there's no way in heck Amazon's even close to stopping. But maybe if they had, 3,000 experiments going on, maybe they cut that down to 1,200, right? Which is a big cut, but 1,200 is still way more than anybody, outside would realize they're doing, and it would still be putting a large portion, of the resources toward innovation. So I do think that you'll see a bunch of that. I remember from being at Amazon, I was there in the 2008 crunch, and that dates me, but I was there in the 2008 crunch, and I remember tightening the belt then. It's a business like that, and Amazon is so in command of the variables of their business, that when it comes time to tighten, they're pretty good at it, and you can be really calculated, really surgical as to where you tighten and as to where you allow the innovation to continue. And I would advise any retailer or any company, brand manufacturer, any other company out there in this environment, you do want to, just like your ship metaphor, right? You want to have the confidence that there is going to be another side. We're going to be getting right up close to the wall during this, but keep your hand on the wheel. Pick your key innovations that you think have a chance at really pleasing your customers, particularly being aware of the environment we're in, right? So customers are looking for value, right? They're looking for convenience and service that doesn't come at an excessive price. And just understand your customers and that value you can give them, and how, as they get through this time, and this shapes who they are and how they purchase, focus on those innovations that you can really make a difference for them. And then as you get close to that wall, and it's time to accelerate out, you'll be ready with these innovations for the customers. And I think at a time like this, when customers are hurting, which is terrible, they can be influenced, right? I think that they're going to look even more to you for solutions. So if you can be there with solutions that help them today, I think it's as valuable as ever.
Well, and to go back to something that Glenn Durbeek was saying 30 or 40 years ago, right? The more you can establish yourself as an agent for the consumer, for the shopper,
Yes,
the better
yes,
off you are, right?
absolutely.
And we're
Yeah,
seeing already, because there are a number of stories out there about how there are food companies out there, and I think it's more on the manufacturing side than on the real retail side, but it's happening in retail as well, where people are profit taking, right? They're using inflation to raise prices more than they have to,
yeah,
because it's
yeah.
a great time to build their numbers, build their own. I'm pretty cynical about it. Build their own compensation, and in doing so, though, they may hurt themselves in the long run. And to go to your point about Amazon being more calculated, I mean, we both spend a lot of time, talking about an industry where almost everybody is very calculated, almost too calculated about their innovation. Right. But it's really important to going forward that they have to continue to focus on innovations, big and small.
Yeah, if you turn off the innovation engine, it's a hard engine to turn back on. Right. I think you got to keep it at least at a peppy idle. Or not even an idle, like in a lower gear where you're at least moving forward and you're continuing to flex those innovation muscles. You don't have to spend as much. You can be, more calculated in what you do. You don't have to make now's not a time to make big bets, right? Now's not a time to make a big capital intensive new bet. That capital is more expensive. Customers aren't necessarily ready, depending on what the bet is. You just got to be really careful to make big bets now. I don't see many retailers stepping up to make big bets right now. Right. But if you can make a bet that, you can do within the range of your current balance sheet and P&L without stressing it, absolutely keep those investments humming, because I think there's with where the customer is today and what they're looking for solutions, there's a real opportunity to win them over.
Well, and I'm going to do something elsewhere on Morning Newsbeat today as people see this. But I saw an innovation that I'm going to point to, which I think, first of all, probably costs next to nothing. And I thought was really smart. It's your other alma mater. It's Wegmans. So I get this email today, and it's here. We're here to help this Thanksgiving. And they give you 4 choices.
Did you print that out? You printed out the email?
I printed out, yes.
It's like one of those Geico commercials.
Yeah.
Hey, look at the email I printed out. You don't have to print it.
Well, I did it because I wasn't.
No, I know it's a better.
I wasn't going to try and share my screen. It's because I'm
kidding.
But it's. I need help with recipes and meal planning. I need help with catering the whole meal. I need ready-made options and finishing touches, and I'm not sure what my plan would be. Right? And it's simple.
That's awesome.
I've never seen them do this before.
That's so customer centric.
Right? It's like,
yeah,
we understand that one size doesn't fit all. We're going to give you a bunch of sizes. You tell us what you need, and we're going to help.
I think a lot of people, when you're thinking about that meal, a month out now, it creates anxiety, right? It's anxiety around, well, I want it to be good.
Right.
I want it to, I can't break the bank necessarily on it, right? There's just a lot of anxiety around that. And you might even have questions you don't know you have. And Wegmans says, these are the challenges or the questions you may have, and we're here to help you.
Well, and it tells, and not only do you don't even know the questions necessarily, but they may have solutions for you that you don't even know exist.
Exactly.
Which means
and that is the key to innovation.
Right. Exactly.
That is the key to innovation, to recognize a problem and to solve it, so that when the customer finds that solution, they are absolutely delighted. Didn't realize that solution was even possible. And you've delivered that to them. I mean, that creates such a strong bond. That it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and somebody probably programmed this email in about, I don't know, 10 minutes. How hard could that have been? Right?
Yeah.
So
it's just a great example of a retailer that knows their customer, understands their customer's challenges, and is there to help them. And that's the formula. It's amazing.
Good place to end. Hey, listen, enjoy Chicago.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everyone.